Hey everybody, what's up? It is Blade Daily. I am coming at you. It's Monday morning maybe for you, or Monday sometime for you, or sometime after Monday, but it's Sunday night for me. Not the usual time we do this stuff, but it's kind of an emergency call to action, and that is because we have witnessed the passing of a one-of-a-kind wrestler. There will never be another one like him, and that might be a good thing. In some ways, and a bad thing in many others. The legendary hardcore icon Sabu has passed away at age 60. We don't know, what happened. We don't know the circumstances, obviously. Sabu was known as a guy who lived pretty hard and lived on the edge, certainly. But, a lot of it has been said and mentioned, and rightfully so, that Sabu living to be 60 years old in a lot of ways was a miracle in and of itself, but it really caught me off guard today. And the reason why is, you may remember a couple weeks ago, I had Shane Ethos and Kurt Jangle on the show talking about Mount Rushmores, and I put Sabu on my Mount Rushmore. And the reason why is, in the 90s, and it's not even close, the most talked about guy on the indies in the early to mid 90s was Sabu. I heard about him exclusively through the Pro Wrestling Illustrated family of magazines. But, this guy was wrestling in Philadelphia. He was wrestling in different parts of the U.S. in Michigan and Wisconsin. He was wrestling people like Al Snow, the Lightning Kid, who would go on to be the 1-2-3 Kid / X-Pac / Six. He was wrestling people like Cactus Jack and having really, really highly praised and just really discussion-worthy matches. He had a match I remember reading about with Cactus Jack in Las Vegas, where they had a cage match that Sabu won by getting out of the cage by jumping off the top of the cage through the timekeeper's table. I mean, nobody was doing that. And Sabu was famous for, after his matches, if he hadn't broken a table during the match, he would moonsault a table till he went through it. This is not at a time when table spots were common. So they didn't have gimmick tables under the ring, just waiting to be broken, okay? These weren't gimmick tables. And many times he would hit a table with a moonsault and it would not break. He would bounce off. He'd get back up. He'd do it again. If it didn't break again, he'd keep doing it till it broke. He wrestled in Japan. He was a star over there for FMW and for New Japan and several other smaller Japanese promotions. And then I would say, if you're outside of the Philadelphia area, the tri-state area, he was the guy who put ECW on the map. Him wrestling there kind of introduced the style that ECW would become famous for. Until Sabu's arrival in ECW, there was some hardcore stuff. I'm not going to say there wasn't. But in the very beginnings of ECW, the Sandman was a surfer, okay, and a bad wrestler on top of that. He was just a shitty babyface dude who wrestled in a surfer wetsuit. It sucked. It was terrible. People like, dudes like Jimmy Snuka were wrapping up their career there in between trying not to get indicted for murder. Don Morocco would come in for a shot. Abdullah might show up. The Sheik might even show up. But it was really just kind of a very small regional territory, Eastern Championship Wrestling. Guys like Johnny Hotbody, the legend Johnny Hotbody, were wrestling there and were kind of the main guys in the promotion. And over time, that changed. And it really shifted with the arrival of people like Shane Douglas. And then it really shifted when Sabu was brought in. I remember in Pro Wrestling Illustrated, they were selling a 4 VHS collection of Sabu tapes through what would become, I believe, RF Video. And my buddy convinced his dad to buy it for him so we could watch ECW, which we had never seen. We lived in a tiny town called Puyallup, Washington. We did not get ECW at all. We had never seen it before. We could not wait for these VHS tapes to show up. Again, 4 tapes, each I think were 3 hours long or something, 4 hours long. There were so many matches jammed on this, and we saw him, fighting Al Snow in a ladder match in Ohio. We saw him fight the Lightning Kid. And this is kind of what it was like at the time. There was, video on the internet didn't exist. I mean, it just didn't. It was terrible. And it cost a fortune to stream anything on video, if you even could, because we had fucking dial-up. So, we had never seen this stuff. We had just read about it and seen pictures. And the pictures were so compelling that we couldn't wait to see more. So we finally got to see some of these matches we had been reading about. And this guy was every bit as crazy as advertised. And it almost didn't feel real. And this guy starts the table craze in the US, which eventually becomes adopted by everybody else in ECW and eventually becomes adopted in WCW and WWF. And that leads to a lot more, edgy booking and a lot more, and not just the table spot, just, hardcore matches and hardcore attitude. And that eventually leads us into what became the Attitude Era. And you can trace so much of what wrestling became directly back to Sabu. The people who know Sabu as like some botch guy or botch related guy kind of upset me. If you've only just known Sabu through the internet and you weren't alive during that time, then you really don't know what you're talking about. The guy was wrestling very, very injured. And, better athletes came along and took his influence and did what he was doing better than he could do it. But he's the innovator. He is the originator. He is not just some botch machine. Sabu took the high flying of guys like Jushin Liger and other people in like Tiger Mask and recontextualized it through the hardcore leanings of his uncle, the Sheik. And nobody had ever really done that before. And it was so innovative. It was fantastic. And so he was my very favorite wrestler for a number of years. I had an ECW original Sabu shirt, which I think I might still have tucked away somewhere, that I called the number and ordered the shirt over the phone in the 90s. And I wore that shirt every chance I got. The homicidal, suicidal, genocidal shirt. It was just fantastic stuff. And so, later Sabu would be in TNA. He would be in WWE, which felt very surreal. And then had another run on the indies and kind of, spent the majority of the rest of his career there. He wasn't a guy who is recognized in his own lifetime for what he contributed to the sport. Lots of people took what Sabu did and monetized it and made millions. Paul Heyman is somebody who's always going to be kind of considered the genius behind ECW. And no doubt he had a great marketing mind, and no doubt he had a great booking mind in so many ways. But maybe his smartest decision was bringing Sabu to ECW, because that laid the template for what ECW eventually became. And to a young Blade Daly, to a young guy who was just opening my eyes to what wrestling could be beyond the fucking Doink the Clowns and the Dukes the Dumpster Drosies and the TL Hoppers that were, taking up time on my TV, the Jean-Pierre Lafitte that Vince McMahon was shoveling down our throats at the time. Sabu was a breath of fresh air and somebody that opened the doors very wide with people that I already liked, like Terry Funk and Cactus Jack and, other people on the indies. But his passing is extremely significant for wrestling. It hit me like a ton of bricks when I saw this morning that he had transcended this realm. And I just want to say, look, you know, I've lost people in my own life, in my own family, amongst friends. None of us know how much time we have. Sabu just had his last match for GCW a few weeks ago. People saw him this week and said he looked fine. Okay. Nobody thought that he was on the edge of death. Okay. But he was, and they didn't know it. He didn't know it. Make sure you do the things that matter to you. Make sure you tell the people that you care about how much you care, because you just don't know. And it doesn't matter what age you are. Anything can happen in this world, and you need to make those moments count. We all do. So I hope you will. But more than anything, I hope tonight, tomorrow, whenever you're listening to this, whenever you're not driving a car, you'll point up at the lights, you'll stare up in wonderment, and you think of our boy Sabu, the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal, hardcore icon, the man who revolutionized wrestling, the guy who had one of the most disgusting barbed wire matches of all time, en route to winning the ECW world title from Terry Funk. One of the absolute greatest. We love you, Sabu. Flawed human though you may have been, as we all are, you were one of the greatest wrestlers there ever was. That's it for me. R.I.P. Sabu. We'll have more for you later this week. Talk to you soon.